Don't you just hate it when a movie disappoints you, where they put out something amazing and it's followed up by absolute garbage? Last month I put out a video on 10 of the biggest movie sequel letdowns of all time. In the comments, one of my patrons and frequent commenters named Michael recommended a great idea, and here are 10 of the biggest director drop-offs of all time. Today we're looking at the biggest director drop-offs from movie to movie. And when I say that, I don't mean that these are directors that never made a good movie again. I don't mean that at all. I'm referring to directors who put something out that was just awesome, some of their best, and followed it up with some of their absolute worst. The movie-to-movie drop-off was just so sharp. That's what we're looking at today. And with that in mind, go ahead and join me down below in the comments section. Share your picks for the biggest director drop-offs of all time. They put out something you loved, and they followed it up very shortly afterwards with something that was just so bad, so painfully mediocre that it left you completely disappointed. And let's get started. We're kicking things off with Josh Trank, From Chronicle to Fanforstic. Now, back in 2012, Josh Trank kind of became this wonderkind director out of nowhere. He puts out this movie called Chronicle. There was sort of a superhero found footage movie with psychological elements to it. Cost $15 million, made over $100 million, helped launch Dane DeHaan's career, helped propel Michael B. Jordan's career to this whole other level, that it took a genre that was feeling a little bit stale, did something lively, interesting with it, and everyone went, this guy's got talent. Shortly afterwards, he gets picked up to direct the latest version of the Fantastic Four. Kathleen Kennedy grabs him up to do a Star Wars movie. This guy was supposed to be the next big thing in Hollywood. And then Fanforstic came out, and it was not good.
The Fantastic Four suck, right? They suck, full stop.
Now, this is a movie infamous for all kinds of behind-the-scenes trouble, where apparently there was all kinds of conflict in the development of the movie, of what the tone was going to be like. Shortly before they were supposed to start filming, Fox decided to trim the budget by like $20-30 million, so he had to cut a couple action sequences out of the movie. Very late in the process, reworking the film. Apparently he had meltdowns on set. There were all sorts of crazy reports of stuff taking place, and then the movie was essentially taken from him in post-production, and they did massive reshoots, massive rewrites, all that stuff, reworked the movie, and what they released in theaters a couple days before the film came out, Josh Trank himself disowned it, said that the movie he made a year earlier was awesome, and the thing that was about to be released is garbage. And the movie that was released was garbage. It's a very strange movie to watch because you can watch a first 45 minutes of it that is fairly cohesive, a little bit too serious, and then it just goes off a cliff in the back half, where it's like they had no idea where to go with the movie and trim stuff, cut stuff, and it just rushes to a third act that feels like it comes absolutely out of nowhere. You went from, this guy's gonna be the future of Hollywood, the most exciting new voice, to, oh, the guy that did Fantastic Four 2015, and his career's basically been over ever since. Guy Ritchie, from Snatch to Swept Away. Now, Guy Ritchie emerged as this exciting new voice in the late 90s with Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, this low budget, basically British spin on Quentin Tarantino, but had its entirely own flavor, voice, style to it. And when that became a hit for its budget, he was given a bunch of additional money to do a follow-up that's not really a sequel, but it's a spiritual sequel called Snatch that's very much the same movie. If he was given a much bigger budget, Brad Pitt shows up in the film, and this is when I discovered Guy Ritchie with the movie Snatch, went back and found Lock, Stock, Two Smoking Barrels, love both films to this day. They're just so unique, so energetic, such a distinct nature to the comedy, the way they're visualized, hyper energetic, everything about them, so fun. And this guy became the guy like, man, this is one of my favorite directors. I can't wait to see what he's going to do next.
This is the worst.
He followed it up with Swept Away. I don't remember the exact timeline. Somewhere in here, he gets married to Madonna. And I don't know if that was before he made the movie with her. I don't remember the exact nature of the soap opera behind the scenes. But he decides to do a remake of this movie called Swept Away with his wife, Madonna, in the lead. And it is atrocious. It's just unbelievably unlikable characters. Like, Madonna's character is just a wretched, horrible woman who's terrible to everyone, and she gets shipwrecked on an island with one of the help that she's been abusive to this entire time. On the island, she's useless, he's useful, so suddenly the power dynamic shifts, and he starts being abusive towards her, including physically abusing her and getting kind of rapey with her. And all the style of his previous movies is gone. All the humor of his previous movies is gone. And you just get this like really like just gross love story because it's two people that are abusive to each other when they're in power, that fall in love because they're trapped on an island. And so you're not rooting for either one of them. It's not romantic. You don't buy into it. It's just a movie that is just bad idea after bad idea with equally bad execution. And for a director that's made quite a few not great movies, love a lot of Guy Ritchie, but he's made a lot of duds, this is easily the worst of his films. Today's video is brought to you by ExpressVPN. Going online without ExpressVPN is like not closing the door when you use the bathroom. Even if you think you have nothing to hide, why give random creeps a chance to invade your privacy? So why do you need a VPN? Because all of your traffic flows through servers, internet service providers, including mobile network providers, and they know every single website that you visit. And in the US, ISPs are legally allowed to sell that information to advertisers. ExpressVPN reroutes 100% of your traffic through secure, encrypted servers so your ISP can't see your browsing history. So why is ExpressVPN the best VPN? It hides your IP address, making it extremely difficult for third parties to track your online activity. It's extremely easy to use. You just open the app, click one button, and you're protected. And it works on all devices, laptops, phones, tablets, and more. You can stay private on the go. I have been an ExpressVPN paying user for a while now. I travel a lot. ExpressVPN was the right cost, super easy to use, and it didn't slow down my browsing of the internet. Secure your online data today by visiting expressvpn.com/Chandler. That's expressvpn.com/Chandler to find out how you can get your 4 extra months. expressvpn.com/Chandler. The Russo brothers. This one's a little bit of a different type of drop-off. And in the case of this one, in the last decade, the Russo brothers were the absolute kings of theatrical releases. Winter Soldier, Civil War, Infinity War, Endgame. All in the MCU. All of them, I would say all of them are top 10 MCU films. During a hot streak for the MCU, they had the hottest of hot streaks inside of the MCU. And were able to work in that system so incredibly well. And in the 6 years since, first off, they have not had a theatrical release. Second off, they have not made a movie that has actually made a meaningful splash that's stuck around. So, Endgame, briefly the highest grossing movie of all time, the cinematic event of 2019, an important movie for anybody that's been watching movies the last 10 years, just like a true event, was followed up by the streaming drama Cherry starring Tom Holland that I was extremely excited to see it, just to see what they'd be able to do outside of the MCU doing something different. And it's not terrible, but it just, it felt undercooked on a script level, overcooked in a stylistic level, and a movie that once you got past the immediate, like, oh, Tom Holland doing a drama, Russo's doing something outside of the MCU, just kind of disappeared. They followed that up with Gray Man. Another one. Very excited to check this out. All right. Russo brothers returning to do action spectacle. Star-studded cast. We even got Chris Evans in there, Ryan Gosling. And they delivered a competent, completely generic streaming action movie. It's totally watchable, but it's the same as so many of these other gigantic budget streaming blockbuster things. Just no impact, no staying power. Then this year they put out The Electric State, adaptation of a book, alternate post-apocalyptic universe with robots and battles and stuff. Chris Pratt, Millie Bobby Brown, $320 million budget to the film, dropped on Netflix. And I didn't hate as much as some people, but once again, it was just like another streaming product. And that's the thing. They went from making the cinematic events of the last decade with tremendous staying power, shaped the zeitgeist, popular culture. We're still talking about them. Now, they were a part of the franchise that they didn't launch, but they pulled off some of the biggest and best movies in that franchise, whether you're talking about Winter Soldier, widely regarded as the best, or the biggest in Infinity War and Endgame. They did both. And then they've put out 3 movies in a row that have had just absolutely no impact, no staying power. None of them have been particularly well received. That, to me, in particular, in terms of theatrical and impact, just such a drop-off. Next up, M. Night Shyamalan. Now, I'm old enough to remember the red-hot streak that he had in the very end of the 90s through the early zeros with The Sixth Sense, Unbreakable, and Signs. And at the end of this run, Newsweek ran an article on him called The New Spielberg. Like, front page Newsweek, The New Spielberg. It was M. Night Shyamalan. And, like, people debate which one of these is people's favorites. Sixth Sense is probably the one that has the broadest, widest number of people that love it. There's a bunch of people like myself that are massive fans of Unbreakable. And then Signs was just a big popcorn film that just a ton of people loved. Some people don't love the end of it with the water. I get it. But a tremendous 3-movie run that just made him this presence in Hollywood. And then, depending on the person, me, I'd say the drop-off is after Signs. Some people would say there's a little bit more of a taper off. But he follows it up with The Village, which to me was a tremendous disappointment. There are Village fans out there. And then he does Lady in the Water, which I just thought is a pretentious mess. He literally writes himself into the movie as the greatest author of all time, and it's so in love with itself and storytelling and fantasy that it just completely loses anything interesting or relatable. He follows that up with The Happening, a movie that absolutely has some so bad it's good qualities to it.
What? No.
But it almost feels like a parody of himself. And he follows that up with Avatar: The Last Airbender, an atrocious franchise movie. Followed that up with After Earth, a completely generic vanity project for the Smith family. And you go, this is the guy that's supposed to be the next Spielberg. And, I'll grant The Village is a stepping stone movie to him falling completely off. But for me, The Village was this huge drop from Signs where I was like, oh, I think I'm falling out of love with M. Night Shyamalan in his films. Then we have Ridley Scott with Gladiator to Hannibal. Now, Ridley Scott is a director with a 50-year-long career of directing films with many highs and many lows. He's had a bunch of these little roller coaster moments. For me, the biggest roller coaster moment was Gladiator to Hannibal, where Gladiator, one of my favorite movies of all time, won Best Picture, big, gigantic blockbuster, incredibly popular film, but also a movie that won awards, has had staying power. Obviously, we got a sequel last year. It's the movie that propelled Russell Crowe to being an A-lister. And he followed it up with Hannibal. Hannibal actually qualifies for two different massive drop-offs. Both Gladiator to Hannibal is like, woo, but Silence of the Lambs to Hannibal is also, woo, a tremendous drop-off on two fronts. I was there opening day for Hannibal. I was so excited because I loved Ridley Scott, Gladiator, loved Silence of the Lambs, and these two worlds are merging together. Ridley Scott is going to give us the story about Hannibal Lecter. And I was so unbelievably disappointed when I first saw it in the theater. I never rewatched it just on my own. I've only rewatched Hannibal a couple of times in the course of my YouTube channel. One time to do a Hannibal Lecter ranking, one time to do a Ridley Scott ranking. And every time I'm just kind of in awe of how the movie just completely misses anything that made Silence of the Lambs so compelling. It's like the sort of film where they lock into the side thing. Of course, it's Hannibal Lecter being not the lead character in Silence of the Lambs, doesn't have a ton of screen time, but he's just such a presence, and they went, okay, he's the star now. He's the focus, and they didn't know what to do with that. And so it's just kind of torn between who's the good guy, who's the bad guy. There's this very weird plot about someone trying to get revenge on Hannibal Lecter, and it's just like this meandering plot line with all these characters and subplots, but nothing compelling holding it all together. A very strange relationship between Clarice and Lecter himself, and so a film that has all of the talent in front of and behind the scenes to be something incredible, working with a great set of characters, but the story was just not there. Just a terrible story that I've never found remotely compelling, and not even Ridley Scott and Anthony Hopkins could save this mess. J.J. Abrams, from The Force Awakens to Rise of Skywalker. And this one is a little bit of a different angle on this, but simply on quality terms, almost everyone would say that Force Awakens is much better than Rise of Skywalker. But I think more importantly, the reason this one's included on the list is because Force Awakens, while historically we look back on it maybe not as fondly as we used to, when it came out was a unifying film. They got the right guy at the right moment to create a Star Wars movie that brought Star Wars fans back together and got them excited for the future of Star Wars. But at that moment in time, where a lot of people from my generation were very burned by the prequels, that we thought George had kind of lost his way with the tone and made a lot of mistakes, it was the right movie at the right time to win a lot of people back. And that's exactly what happened. And then Rogue One kind of continued that. And then Last Jedi became this very polarizing film. Lucasfilm abandoned their Colin Trevorrow plans and turned into course correction mode. J.J. Abrams comes back and gives us Rise of Skywalker, a movie that, in the same way that Force Awakens unified the fandom, got people excited for Disney Star Wars, Rise of Skywalker cemented the fact that Disney Star Wars is a mess, that doesn't know what they're doing. It is not vision-driven. It's not story-driven. It's just chasing trends. And you get this course correction movie that's become the butt end of jokes 6 years later. There's just nobody that loves this movie. And as the last movie of the Skywalker saga, it's a complete embarrassment. It just is such a symbol of so much of what's wrong with Disney Star Wars. It's the symbol of it. Reactionary, lack of vision, just doing crap, pandering in the worst possible ways, throwing characters in just to be like, look, Palpatine, somehow he returned. We're just doing this nonsense. And J.J. Abrams, the guy that unified everybody in being excited for Star Wars again, also managed to unify everyone in being like, oh, no, Disney Star Wars is a disaster. James Mangold with Ford vs. Ferrari to Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Now, James Mangold is another one of these directors that had quite a few of these, of ups and downs. His movie from last year, Complete Unknown, really great film. And who knows what his next movie will be or how good it will be. But when he hits, but he also misses quite a bit. So he did Logan. Awesome. Follows it up with Ford vs. Ferrari. I'm not big into racing and reality at all, but Ford vs. Ferrari is an awesome movie. Another one that gets a couple of thumbs ups of just super entertaining, classic dad movie. It's an underdog story, going up against the system, outsiders, weird, wild characters. Christian Bale. Loved Ford vs. Ferrari. And then he was announced to be doing the new Indiana Jones movie when Steven Spielberg dropped out. And I kind of had all kinds of mixed feelings. I was like, oh, I love James Mangold. This could be awesome. I was like, wait, do I want to see a Loganized version of Indiana Jones? And I don't hate, I've never rewatched it, but I don't hate Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny as much as some people. But it is, as a final Indiana Jones film, there are so many problems with it, and there's so many ideas that I just don't think mesh with the franchise at all. They're just completely ill-conceived. Apparently, a lot of them came from Harrison Ford, that Harrison Ford himself wanted to do the hero deconstruction and show that an aging hero. The fantasy of Indiana Jones is this handsome, intelligent man of action that's always in over his head and finds a way to get out of it and get the girl at the same time and be back in time to, teach class. So when you make him a lonely, depressed alcoholic that's a senior citizen, that a woman is taking advantage of his elderly naivety, the fantasy's gone. The fun is gone. And that's what this movie did. And it just kind of ends you on this note of like, I don't want the fantasy to be broken. I want to keep the escapist fantasy of Indiana Jones. Beyond that, a report came out from Forbes just this week that the reported budget is now like $417 million. $417 million is such an insane amount of money to spend on a movie like this. And some of that's COVID inflation and Harrison Ford got injured. But you never should have been spending half that amount on an Indiana Jones movie because it's an Indiana Jones movie and you're violating even the concepts of what I want out of these films, which is practical stunt work, old school thrills, not face-swapped stunt doubles, CGI green screen trains, and all of this stuff that is extraordinarily expensive. Just there's no justification for it. So this is a perfect example of so much of the bad decision-making of Lucasfilm over the Disney era, of deconstructing heroes, stealing what we love about them, and then greenlighting an ill-conceived script with an incredibly bloated budget to deliver a mediocre film. Zack Snyder, and he's a director that has done this actually a couple of different times. He is way all over the place in terms of quality. So we've got Watchmen to Sucker Punch, and we've got Zack Snyder's Justice League to Rebel Moon. In each of these cases, there is a middle film in there between the drop-off, and the common factor when it comes to the drop-offs is it's the ones that he wrote. Watchmen is a divisive film, and it's a film that someone like Christopher Nolan has talked about how it was a movie that was way ahead of its time. When the graphic novel came out, the comics were, 50 years old, and so doing a deconstruction of comic book heroes in comic books made sense in the 1980s. But jump forward, when you do a deconstruction of the superhero team 3 years before Avengers comes out, you haven't constructed the superhero team in the cinematic form before you've deconstructed it.
The movie that's probably was made 10 years before it should have been made, based on what it says about the genre. You know, I was making it based on this comic book genre, right? Not the movie genre necessarily, but movies have caught up to it.
So it's a movie that was kind of ahead of its time. Zack Snyder does have a distinct flavor to it, so some people don't think that that was the right way to adapt Alan Moore's work. I think it's a very cool film. Not terribly long afterwards, he did Sucker Punch, a movie that is... It's like literally a visualization of a dream inside of a fantasy or something like that. It's like, it's Inception levels of complexity of layers, but in the wrong sense, in a non-cohesive sense, that we're playing everything out in the mind. It's just a mechanism for Zack Snyder to put all of his drawings on the big screen. So you get a movie that individual shots are tremendous, they're fascinating, they're interesting, they're comic books brought to life. And so you see the trailer like, what on earth is this crazy movie? And then you find out, oh, it's just a dream inside of a fantasy. Then we have Zack Snyder's Justice League to Rebel Moon. I adore Zack Snyder's Justice League. I never thought it would be released in such a completed form, and then when they did, I watched it and I was like, this is my jam right here. I get it now. This is so cool. Then we got Army of the Dead, which I like more than most, but disappointment. And then he does Rebel Moon 1 and 2 and the director's cut versions, which are just atrocious. And they shouldn't be. Zack Snyder's Star Wars should be totally my thing, but it's the worst version of it. It's like a caricature of Zack Snyder. It's so by the numbers. It's so stretched out and padded out. Such a disappointment. And even the director's cuts were only mild improvements by at least having something of value and shock value, of gore, of superficial carnage candy, but nothing was fixed on a story level. It's like a more sensical plot than Sucker Punch, but a movie that only offers Zack Snyder images in a very forgettable Star Wars knockoff. Martin Scorsese with Taxi Driver to New York, New York. And once again, obviously, Martin Scorsese made a massive comeback after New York, New York, and has put out a whole bunch of fantastic films since that movie. But he went from Taxi Driver, almost without question, one of, if not his best movie, to New York, New York, which is also pretty widely regarded as one of his worst films. Taxi Driver is just this deep character study about this disenfranchised taxi driver trying to find love, trying to find purpose. And it's perfectly eerie, it's violent, it's influential, and it just dives you into this world of this guy that you're compelled by him while being utterly creeped out by him at the exact same time.
Well, who the hell else are you talking to? Talking to me? Well, I'm the only one here.
He follows this up with his tribute to like 1940s, 1950s big band musicals, and puts out this movie that everything about it is bloated. Every scene, every sequence is too long. It has two lead characters that you can't buy into at all. Like from the very beginning, you're like, I don't like either one of these characters. I don't see why they're drawn to each other. I don't see why any of this is taking place. And then it never gets better. Like every continuing addition to their relationship with each other, with the business, you're like, this makes no sense for either one of them. This isn't compelling. And it's this very strange merger of his influences from decades past with a little bit of that street level taxi driver grit that he was known for, and the combination just does not work. There's also reports that he was like coked out of his mind while he was making it, all sorts of other stuff, of problems behind the scenes as to why you get this very strange, self-indulgent mess of a movie that nobody really wanted. Steven Spielberg with Jaws and Close Encounters of the Third Kind to 1941, then followed up by Raiders of the Lost Ark and E.T. One of these is not like the other. Now, Steven Spielberg is my favorite director of all time, and I adore so many of his films. I had never watched 1941 until I did a Steven Spielberg ranking just a couple years ago. And, wow, yeah, it really did live up to its reputation. So with Jaws, Steven Spielberg basically invented the blockbuster, had the highest grossing movie of all time, and suddenly everyone's like, who is this guy? Puts out Close Encounters of the Third Kind, a great science fiction film. Right after this, he shows he can do action and adventure with the greatest action-adventure movie of all time, and then he does E.T., just this incredible family drama, the best boy and his dog movie ever made. But in the middle of it all, he decided to make his first World War II movie, and he decided to make what is probably his most straight-up comedy that he's ever made.
I can assure you, there will be no bombs dropped here.
And it just doesn't work. It is a bizarre blend of World War II and screwball comedy and star-studded cast, and even like the writing team on it. Like everything about this, if you just look at it on paper, it should be incredible. But it's just wrong. Like everything is out of whack. Everything is out of calibration. And it is big and bombastic without having punchlines that make you laugh. It's loud and obnoxious without having big loud laughs in it. But finally, Mel Gibson, from Hacksaw Ridge to Flight Risk. One of the craziest drop-offs in quality I have ever seen, and one that actually came out this year. Now, Mel Gibson, of course, was one of the biggest movie stars of the end of the last century. Then he got into directing, and his second film, Braveheart, won a whole bunch of Oscars, including one for himself, as well as Best Picture. And then he does Passion of the Christ, which is beloved in church world. He does Apocalypto, which was very well received. Follows up Apocalypto 10 years later with Hacksaw Ridge, which also got fantastic reviews, got a ton of awards buzz. It was nominated for Oscars, and so you just kind of get this great war drama. 9-year gap. He returns to the director's seat in 2025 with Flight Risk. Not only is it a bad movie, which in and of itself would qualify it for this list, the thing that's so shocking about Flight Risk is that it's a low ambition, bad movie. Braveheart is an incredibly complex film to pull off. Period piece, covering years, massive battles, drama, action. Hacksaw Ridge, very complex film. War, period piece, drama, big production. But all four of these movies that he did before this are difficult films to pull off and difficult films to please their target audiences and do them with excellence. Flight Risk is a basic B-movie thriller that people are on a flight and the flight is basically taken hostage by a crazy pilot. No layers, no complexity, not a lot of moving parts to it. And it's just not good. It's like low ambition, low quality execution. Like all around, it's like, why did he even agree to make this movie? And then he just phoned it in. None of the talent previously on display is in this movie. It's just a bad version of a schlocky little throwaway January thriller. Just like plot holes, ill-conceived ideas, so bad it's good, corny dialogue, just everything about it. It's the sort you would, if you saw this without knowing his name was attached with it, and you said, guess who directed this movie? You would throw out so many names of people who've done movies like this, or you would never guess Oscar-winning director Mel Gibson. It's astounding that the guy that did Braveheart, Hacksaw Ridge, Passion of the Christ, Apocalypto, directed Flight Risk. insanity levels of like, what happened here? So this list isn't really in order, but we're going to put Mel Gibson at number 1 as the most insane director drop-off of all time. Low ambition, low quality, flight risk, yikes, what have you done? There you have it. Let me know your picks down below in the comments section. Check out that other video about sequels that had drop-offs too, and keep talking movies and TV too much. Bye-bye.